Hey everyone, John here, and Ash Paulson has been to a magical place called Boston.
It is indeed magical here. It's got all the cold weather I crave at home in Los Angeles, but very rarely ever get.
And you're not just there to be cold, you're there for PAX East. And
Indeed.
there's a pretty big game that you've just played.
Yeah, so I just got done playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, which, if you know me at all, you know this was the one game more than anything at PAX East this year that I could not wait to play. I've been so excited about this ever since they announced it, over a year ago now, right? It's been kind of a slow burn.
Oh yeah, it's been that long, huh?
I think it's been more than a year, yeah.
God, and it's done by .mu, and these guys, they have never missed in their lives. They just did Streets
No.
of Rage 4, Windjammers 2, Metal Slug Tactics. Like, these guys are gods at this point. I'll trust them with my life.
You should trust them with your life and with the Ninja Turtles IP, apparently, because I gotta say, man, what I've played is it's making me so happy. And I should also point out that it's also being developed by Tribute Games, which are made up of some of the people who worked on Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. And so you can definitely feel a bit of that game's DNA in Shredder's Revenge as well. But fortunately, only the good parts, I would say.
Say no more at that point. You said Scott Pilgrim, .mu, like this is just a prestige list of names right here.
Yeah.
But you've actually got to play the game, and I'm super, super jealous. But you're one of the biggest Turtles fans I know, so more than anyone, I want to hear your thoughts. So what exactly does this feel like? Does it feel like a return to form to the days of old Turtles beat-em-ups, or is it more of an evolution of that?
It is, I would say it's a bit of both. It honestly, it feels like a true, proper follow-up to games like Turtles in Time, The Manhattan Project. It is the next, arcade-style Ninja Turtles beat 'em up with all the modern flourishes that implies, and it feels very similar to kind of a Streets of Rage 4 style improvement on the first three games in the series, where it obviously adds new mechanics and adds a lot more depth than the original trilogy had, without overcomplicating things. So you can definitely tell at a glance that there's more happening here, and there's more gameplay depth. But if you just want to sit down, have a few drinks with your buddies and just, mash your way through, you can do that as well. It doesn't overcomplicate things for the sake of overcomplication,
And one thing, I've not had a hands-on like you, but just looking at the game, like, things I'm noticing, it's not just like it's retreading the past, it's bringing a lot of elements that haven't been in games before. I'm seeing like a lot of background details and enemies that weren't in like Turtles in Time, and I love that. It's not like it's just trying to get your nostalgia, it really is doing something different that no Turtles game has done before.
Yeah, I tweeted this out yesterday, but you can absolutely tell. Like this game is oozing with love for the original 80s Ninja Turtles cartoon, and you see that in every pixel. This is genuinely some of the best pixel animation I have ever seen this side of Third Strike. It is a gorgeous game to behold in motion. And yes, you've got the usual suspects like Bebop and Rocksteady and obviously Shredder. Krang is clearly going to be part of the proceedings, as his head is kind of what kicks off some of what's going on in the story. His head beams out some kind of radio wave, and that helps them take over, again, the Statue of Liberty. It is always the Statue of Liberty with them, and I don't know why. But so you see the usual suspects, but then you see characters like Vernon, April's, kind of bumbling partner from the original series. And in the animated intro, there are villains like Chrome Dome, who you don't usually see as often in Ninja Turtles games. They've been in games before, but you don't really see them that often. So you're getting a lot of, TMNT's more, or lesser known villains, I should say. And so, you can definitely tell that these people adore the old series. But what's cool about it is that it kind of takes that old series and, if you go back and watch it, it hasn't aged that well. It isn't a particularly great show past the first couple of seasons, but it's charming, right? But what's cool about this game is that it takes that old cartoon and that version of the Turtles and that kind of warm, super colorful, inviting, funny, vibe the original series had, and adds a bit of an anime-ish edge to it, and not like anime, but just kind of a bit of an edge, like they look really cool. I wouldn't say the Turtles look cool in the 80s series. They're fun, and they love to party and eat pizza, but there's a lot of humor. And while there is humor in this game too, the pixelized, the pixel designs for these turtles in this game have kind of an edge to them, and it makes them look really damn cool. And It's kind of like a really neat cross between the old series and kind of the style you would see in something like the 2012 series. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's such a stylish flair. And I love that they've gone back to pixel art too, but they're not limiting themselves to 16-bit color palettes. Like, it's so vibrant and varied. And like, speaking of oozing in the charm of the 80s, there's something I guess we can't avoid for too long, is that part of your heritage is in here, Ash, as your dad is in this game.
Yeah, my dad is in this game along with the rest of the original Turtles voice actors, Townsend Coleman, Cam Clark. You know, it's just, they're all there. They're all back, and they sound exactly like you would expect them to. You know, obviously everyone's much older, but it feels, from what I could at least hear, obviously the show floor is pretty loud, and I did get a private session with the developers, but, you know, I had them talking to me while I was playing, so it was hard to really only focus on the voices. But from what I could tell, they all slipped right back into their roles like it was yesterday, and I could certainly vouch for my dad, because I've heard him slip back into Raphael plenty of times throughout my life. So they all sound great, and I should clarify, though, that it is just the Turtles. I've seen some questions about, well, what about Renee Jacobs or April O'Neil and Bebop and Rocksteady, and, of course, you know, Shredder was James Avery, may he rest in peace, and you can't ever replace his Shredder. He was just incredible, and you can tell. Like, the characters outside of the Turtles, if you're a fan of the old series, you're going to hear it immediately. They don't sound the same. So, you know, it's not, they don't go all the way, and I don't know why they didn't get certain characters back other than James Avery, but it is what it is. I think the new people still sound pretty good, and of course, the most important thing other than Shredder are, of course, the Turtles. So, and they sound exactly like you'd want them to, and, you know, at the end of each stage, you get a whole 4-turtle cowabunga, and it just makes you feel like a kid again, right? And you get a pizza, and it's like, pizza time, and they all say it. It brings you back to a simpler time, and it's just really cool.
Sounds cozy as heck.
It
is.
Is.
Speaking of the Turtles being a main focus, they totally are, but they're not the only playable characters in this. So in your hands-on time, did you just play as the Turtles, or did you try some April?
Oh, I tried some April and some Splinter. So basically, I've
nice.
played as everyone except Leonardo at this point, and I'm going to take care of that at some point during the rest of PAX, just so I can say I played as everybody. But yeah, I've taken almost everybody for a spin, and I gotta say, I'm having a hard time choosing, from a gameplay standpoint, choosing between Raph and April is my favorite. They are both so fun. And I know some people are out there like, oh, of course Raph, because he's your dad. Don't forget, my dad also played Donatello in the 2012 series, and, you know, I'm saying it's not just Donnie and Raph, it's Raph specifically. I get accused of bias a lot, but I promise I actually do just love the Turtles outside of my dad being in them as well.
Did you have a how did each character sort of feel different then? Like, there's obvious traits that are going to feel a bit different, but was there a drastic feel in combat?
I would say it's kind of a half step between something like Streets of Rage 4, or Streets of Rage in general, and something like Scott Pilgrim, right? So in Streets of Rage, every character is completely different. Completely different. In Scott Pilgrim, you have characters who are a little bit different and with a couple of moves, but they generally feel the same, and they all work from the same general template of moves, right? And this game is kind of in the middle of that, so while the controls and the move stats, like the move inputs, are the same for every character has their own version of each move, and all the animations are unique. This is not a palette swap situation like, you know, the original TMNT arcade game, or Manhattan Project, or Turtles in Time. You know, it's not like a simple bandana color and weapon swap. The Turtles all look different. They all have completely unique, you know, combo strings. There are various jump attacks. There are 3 different special attacks. There's like a stationary special, an air special, and a dodge special. And that's another thing. There's a dodge move now. So this isn't just about being a quarter muncher where, you know, the game is super unfair to the player. This is a game where you can dig in now and learn the mechanics. And yeah, you can dodge away from attacks. You can dodge cancel into other combos. Like, there is only one main combo string, but you can dodge out of that combo string anytime and launch into something else if you want. And so there's, you know, like I said, it's definitely, there's a lot more going on here gameplay-wise, without making it too overcomplicated for people who just kind of want a low, you know, or, well, not low effort, because it's certainly not low effort, but a just kind of low stress beat 'em up, I guess, that doesn't require too much memorization, but there is that there if you really want to memorize the full range of everything each character can do, which again, it's the same general template for everybody, but they all feel different in the way their animations are different, their special attacks are generally pretty different, and yeah, so like I said, it's a half step. They don't feel quite as samey as the characters in Scott Pilgrim do, in my opinion, but don't expect something like Streets of Rage where they feel completely different either.
That's awesome. It's great that we can pull from all these examples too, so it's just kind of showing that we're in the era of revitalizing beat-em-ups. And it's like every year we're getting a totally brand new one, and it just feels like the genre has come back into its own. I will say though, some beat-em-ups, when you're playing on your own, you sort of feel like you're missing something. Like you're missing, like sometimes maybe there's too many enemies because it's made to be co-op. Have you just played this game on your own, or have all your trials been through co-op so far?
So I played both on my own, and fortunately, though, I got to play a 4-player game yesterday, which was really cool. So I've gotten to play a bunch on my own, a little bit with a second player, and then I got to play a full 2 stages with a full 4 players. And that
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, because basically what they have at the booth, the Dotemu booth, has a giant screen on the outside set up with 4 people, so you can have that arcade experience.
Okay. I wouldn't doubt Dotemu after the Streets of Rage 4, but how does the balancing feel between players? Like, can you still have a great time on your own, or does this feel more geared as like a local multiplayer, or even an online multiplayer game?
I mean, I think there's always going to be that inherent appeal of playing with others. You know, there are 4 turtles. You can get 4 players to play all 4 turtles. It just feels cool, right? You can all play your favorite. That's always going to be something that adds a special element to a game like this. But I had a perfectly good time playing by myself as well. Certainly, you know, I was playing with strangers at PAX, and that wasn't quite as fun as it would be, you know, playing with friends, of course. But we all had a really good time, and I will say things get very chaotic. Like we played the first 2 stages in the game. That's the demo at PAX, is stage 1 and 2, and so things are still pretty easy. And so like we were absolutely demolishing everything on screen. Like those foot soldiers didn't stand a chance, and I assume that's because things were probably set on the default difficulty. And I was actually reassured multiple times by the devs, like, hey, if you feel like things are too easy, don't worry, things ramp up more than you might expect. And they did mention, I believe they mentioned there will be multiple difficulty levels, which wouldn't surprise me. I can't say that for sure, but there probably will be, given, again, Streets of Rage, stuff like that. So, but they did say that things do ramp up, and that they had gotten, you know, some concerns that it felt a little bit too easy. And I can see why. It did feel very easy, a little bit low effort in terms of just mowing through enemies. But I was assured that things get tougher down the line, and maybe more than you might be expecting.
Okay. One thing I really want to ask about is the music, but of course you're on the show floor, so it's kind of hard to hear. But we've thrown around so many big names that have contributed to this game, and a massive one is T. Lopes, who's doing the score.
Yeah, and man.
I want to hear so much about this, but unfortunately I don't think you can give me much of an answer right now.
Well, I can say that I've heard the first 2 level themes quite a bit at this point, from what I can hear on the show floor. Of course, I haven't heard them, you know, on headphones directly streamed into my ear holes, but I have heard quite a bit, and I've heard enough to know, also from the trailers as well, I've heard enough to know that T. Lopes is just nailing that very specific energy that the old TMNT arcade games had. It definitely feels like another soundtrack in the vein of Turtles in Time in the 1989 arcade game. It's got that 80s, 90s energy to it that I can't quite describe. It's kind of a je ne sais quoi quality, I guess, like, but you know what I mean. If you've heard the Turtles arcade game soundtracks, you know that vibe I'm talking about. And T completely brings that vibe back with this. It's not another Sonic Mania style soundtrack, because that was for Sonic. That works for Sonic. TMNT has a completely different vibe to it, and it's just got that kind of high energy, groovy 90s kind of synth heavy, let's kick shell kind of just go get 'em energy, right? That the Turtle soundtracks typically have. And from what I've heard so far, it's good stuff. And I also heard some in the boss theme. I heard some leitmotif brought back from a song in Turtles in Time. So T is definitely
so cool.
referencing music in Turtles in Time, and hopefully other older Turtles games as well. But you can definitely hear musical callbacks to previous games in the series.
I've never doubted T in my life. The man always delivers.
Oh,
Every
always.
time.
And actually, just as a little aside, people probably saw me tweet about this, but as I was leaving my Shredder's Revenge appointment, I met him, and he was the one who called me out. He recognized me. He was like, Ash, and I was like, I spun around, and I'm like, oh my god, T, what an honor to meet you. And he's like, the honor's all mine, and I'm like, dude, you're the composer of Sonic Mania. I'm just a dude. Like, the honor is mine, believe me. So that was a pretty cool moment here at PAX.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I guess the biggest question I could possibly ask you is, you've been anticipating this game for a long time now. Has playing it lived up to the hype?
Not only has it lived up to the hype, it's made the wait even harder for me. I mean, I think I would have been the first person to be really crushed and disappointed if this game didn't live up to the hype. Like, you know, if it just didn't feel right, didn't feel like it was coming together, I would be crushed, and we'd be having a very different conversation right now. But that's the thing. This is Dotemu and Tribute, and as you said earlier, they haven't missed. And this seems to be yet another example of them really understanding what makes a game work, really understanding a game's DNA, and expressing the best parts of that DNA, and adding their own modern flourishes. And, you know, we saw it with Streets of Rage. And I remember Derek and I, when we first previewed Streets of Rage 4 at PAX East 2 years ago, we had seen the screenshots, and we were like, yeah, I don't know about this new art style, I don't know. And then we sat down to play it, and immediately we looked at each other, and we were like, holy shit. They nailed this. This is amazing. And that's the same feeling I'm getting with Shredder's Revenge. Like, again, it's not as mechanically complex as Streets of Rage 4, but in terms of adding just enough depth and just enough newness and modern flourishes, and again, the incredible animation, all the love that's oozing for the original cartoon, and all the backgrounds and all the little, it's just, yeah, they're nailing the feel of a Ninja Turtles beat 'em up that's being made in 2022 with all the modernism that would imply. I mean, there's also it's not just arcade mode. It was explained to me during my private session with the game that, yeah, there's arcade mode, and then that challenges you to get through the game on 1 credit, essentially. Multiple lives, but, I think it's basically you game over and you're done. And there is that mode in Streets of Rage 4 as well, but there's also a story mode, which includes all the game's cutscenes, but also includes kind of an RPG-esque progression system where you can level up each character's health. You can unlock new moves as you go for each Turtle and April and Splinter. And so there's a bit of a progression there, and a building up of each character that you wouldn't get in an older Ninja Turtles game. And there's also a world map. There's going to be a world map you can traverse, that you can choose stages, and as you go through the game and build up each character. So I find that to be particularly exciting because, I love being able to upgrade a character over the course of a game, unlock new moves, stuff like that. And that is something that is a specific example of, a mechanic or an element that you wouldn't see in an older Turtles game that I think they're including because they know people kind of want that kind of progression. And I didn't get an exact stage count or anything. They weren't ready to reveal that, but I get the sense that this is going to be a little bit longer than your typical TMNT beat 'em up. Like, obviously not like, we're not talking about an RPG here, but I think it might be a little bit longer, kind of like how Streets of Rage 4 is, a bit longer compared to the first 3 games. I think we're looking at a beefier, level of content here than you might be expecting if you're just, expecting another Turtles in Time. It's more than that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But when it comes to games like Turtles in Time or Streets of Rage, the legacy isn't just the raw playthrough. We play through those games over and over and over again. Streets of Rage 4 is one that you've played repeatedly. So even if it does fall on the short side, that doesn't even really matter. But the fact that it seems like they're throwing so much quality and quantity in here, that a lot of it doesn't even need to be in here. Like the world map and the adventure mode, they sound incredible, but they're not staples of the genre. They didn't have to do that. The fact that adding all these flourishes, though, just gives me so much confidence that this is going to be something really, really special. And even if it doesn't, even if somehow they miss, which I don't think they ever will, but even if they do, we still have the collection coming out. Like, this is an incredible time to be a fan of these games. And it just sounds like an amazing step forward for the games that we loved in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it's the Streets of Rage 4 Sonic Mania effect now happening to the TMNT game series, and it's great to see this continue to happen with these, beloved classics getting updated in meaningful ways for the modern age and breathing new life into these series we grew up with. But not just nostalgia pandering. Yeah, there's a ton of nostalgia pandering here, but there's also what seems to be so far a damn good game underneath it all. It's not just like, hey, remember all this cool stuff you liked, and slapping the thinnest layer of gameplay on top of that. No, this is a game that demands to be played while you're enjoying all the nostalgia and all the cuddly feels from seeing all these characters you loved in the original cartoon come back. And as a fan, I can't wait to see, because it seems like they're pulling from even the most remote corners of that universe. I can't wait to see who are we going to get. There are characters like Leatherhead and as I said, Chrome Dome earlier, and the Rat King. And I assume they're all going to show up. But it also makes me wonder who else might show up. Like, they could really pull deep, like for the Neutrinos or Usagi Yojimbo. Like, I don't know how far they're going to go with this, but I'm really excited to find out. And this is clearly made for people who, A, just want a good beat 'em up that looks amazing and sounds great, but also made for people who just frickin' love that original Ninja Turtles cartoon and who grew up with it when it was like that cultural zeitgeist. And I've seen some people who are like, oh, why isn't it based on the 2012 Turtles? That's the best one. If you go back and watch the 80s series today, it sucks. And there's an argument to be made for that. But if you weren't alive, if you weren't part of that growing up and to experience just how incredibly popular the Turtles were at that time, I think it's easy to dismiss just how influential the 80s series was, even if it isn't that great to go back to watch today compared to some of the more modern iterations of the Turtles. So I get those complaints, but at the same time, you can't, no other iteration of the Turtles has been anywhere near as influential as that original cartoon series. And I also think that the kind of brighter, cartoony aesthetic associated with that series lends itself better to a pixel art game like this. The colors are brighter, they pop, there's a bit more of an anime feel to it. I just think it lends itself better to that than some of the darker iterations we've seen more recently, like the 2012 and the 2003 series. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's just something magical about going back to the past and giving the adventure that started it all just this breath of fresh air, brand new life. And I was excited for this game going into this discussion, but just talking it over, I think this has just skyrocketed to one of my most anticipated games, to be honest, Ash. It sounds like there's just very little that can possibly go wrong. I guess just to finish this up, is there anything else you want to mention about this game? Because it just sounds incredible.
I agree. There's not really... It's hard, from what I played, to imagine them getting this wrong. Like, I can't imagine that they're not going to nail this. Of course, it's still just a preview. We don't know. But it's really hard to imagine, from what I've experienced, that they're going to mess this up. And I guess the only thing I should add is that I did ask about if there are any post-launch DLC plans, and they said they just don't know yet. They're just kind of waiting to see the reception to the game. It's not off the table, but they're
That's nice to hear, to be honest. A lot of publishers definitely have post-launch DLC plans way before the game ships.
Right.
So for them to have this known to be a finished product on day one, that's really nice to hear.
I do, I love that, and I told them as much. I was like, that's cool to hear. I don't think anybody would mind if you wanted to add Casey Jones DLC, hint, hint. And they laughed. You're like, trust me, we've heard that before. And I'm like, no, I'm sure you have. But no, this is a complete game that's being shipped. It is not going to be, they're not already doing DLC bait. They're like, hey, it's not off the table, but there's been no decision made yet, and we'll see if it feels right for this game after it's come out, which I think is really cool. I think it's the right approach. I agree with you. And I'm just looking forward to seeing how everyone on our crew, where we all land in terms of our favorite characters. Like I said, of the Turtles, Raph is my favorite to play, but April, she doesn't hit hard, but she's like she does a lot of multi-hit combos and like excels in combos and juggling, and she's so fun. And her victory animation, when you finish the stage, she literally drops her mic, her reporter mic. She just drops it. It's like
that's
it's
so
little
cool.
stuff like that. Yeah, it's like little, and like Raphael will he'll bring out a pizza and spear his scythe through a slice of pizza, like just stuff like that. You know, it's just every character has so much individual personality baked into them through their animations, even if they are drawing from the same general template of moves and you know, special moves and combos and such. Again, kind of like Scott Pilgrim, but even more individualized. It's great. And I'm so happy I can finally talk about the voices, because my dad told me about that like 6 months ago. He's like, you know, dude, I'm going to tell you about this, but, you know, I know you've been under NDA before, so you can't tell anybody, but this is happening. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I can't wait for people to find out. And the reaction has been exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah. When this game releases, it's just gonna be this iconic moment where you just get the gang to hit the microphone. Yep. You just get the gang together, just play through the game, whether it's local or online, doesn't matter where you live, and just enjoy Turtles again. It's just gonna feel like a brilliant, magical moment, and I cannot wait. But Ash, I think we can probably talk about this game forever.
Oh yeah.
But we should probably wrap this up now. But I'm so happy that you are enjoying this, because your opinions on this probably mean more to me than anyone else, just because of how big of a fan you are. But yeah, it just sounds like it's going to be an incredible time when we finally all get to play this together.
Oh, I can't wait. We're gonna have such a good time. I know She Says was already in for a session with us. He was like, oh, I think he called Leonardo. I think he did. So no, he's in to play with us, and we're gonna absolutely have some streams where we have to order pizza too. We have to all order pizza actually in real life and eat that while we're playing this together. Yeah.
Alright, well, if you enjoyed this, let us know in the comments below. And you can also help us out by checking out our Patreon, where we give you early access to a bunch of videos. We also do... yeah, Ash, you probably know more about the Patreon than I do. Do you want to take the Patreon wrap-up?
Sure, yeah. Check us out on Patreon over at patreon.com/gvgaming. As John said, we do offer early access to many of our videos, especially our feature videos. You can suggest topics for us to discuss each week on our Friday GVG cast. You can be part of our live audience, where you get to react and hang out with us live as we record discussions and, you know, chat with us as we record GVG cast. You can book private sessions to play whatever game you want with any of us co-founders. There's a lot of cool stuff going on over there, so definitely check us out there. But if you can't, we totally understand, and if you could just drop a like and subscribe to the channel here on YouTube, that makes all the difference for us as well. So thanks for doing this with me, John.
No worries, it's been a pleasure. Alright guys, well I suppose we'll see you guys next time then. Bye everyone.
Bye.